Well, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Good. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Really excited that this is the first panel of the day. I always love kicking things off. As Ritesh mentioned, I'm Jordan, and I have the pleasure and privilege of speaking today with Doug Zarkin, CMO of Pearle Vision, part of Luxottica. So, Doug, I know we got to chat last week, which is really great, and I got to do a little bit more homework over the weekend to really learn and understand Pearle Vision's history and where it all started. So, if you're okay with this, would love to hear a little bit more from you about the optical retail space, and really about Dr. Stanley Pearle's vision was and where it is now. Not to steal too much away from you, but I know that Pearle Vision just celebrated their 60th anniversary with over 600 eye care centers throughout the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico, which is phenomenal. So before we really jump into the evolution of e-commerce, we'd love to hear a little bit more about that, if that's cool with you.
Sure. So, first of all, hope everybody watching is staying healthy and sane. Most importantly, exciting year for Pearle Vision. We're just coming up on our 61st year. Hard to imagine that this brand was started by Dr. Stanley Pearle in Savannah, Georgia, in 1961, and his vision at the time was really revolutionary. He wanted to bring a best-in-class doctor with an unmatched commitment to care from the exam room to the retail floor, and then combined the finest assortment of frames and lenses to really do one thing, which was to earn the trust of his neighbors, to become that neighborhood destination that people trust with their eye care and their eyewear. And, 61 years later, we're near 600 eye care centers across US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And most exciting is we were recently named within the top 10% of Entrepreneur Magazine's top 500 franchise brands, and one of the most profitable franchise brands in the marketplace. So the power of Pearle Vision has never been stronger, and it is an absolute pleasure to be representing the brand today. Optical is one of the most terrifying, exciting categories that I've ever had the pleasure of working in, because if you think about it, it's the combination of both fashion and function. Eyewear is at its core a medical device, yet for many, it's the medical device that you're wearing on your face every single day. So trying to find that right blend of, I want a functional pair that's going to allow me to unlock the possibilities for myself and my family by seeing clearly, but also I want something that's going to represent who I am as a person. And so at Pearle, getting to really know the people behind the eyes is truly the secret into finding that perfect pair.
That's pretty remarkable. And as I think about how I purchase optical and lenses, it really does become part of your identity, right? It's the thing that you wear every single day. It's part of you. So that definitely resonates with me and hopefully everyone in the audience. So really taking a look at specifically this past year, the US Department of Commerce, continues to report that the growth has been never really been bigger, right? So it really showed that 1 in every $6 is now coming through online channels. So really kicking this off with the evolution of retail and e-commerce, really starting big picture here. What is it about, brick and mortar and online efforts in combination, almost that blended shopping experience, that's contributing to all of this growth?
So I'm glad you said that it's the combination, because I think many, especially in the last 10 years, have started to plant the flag for the demise of brick and mortar retail and really pointing at places like Amazon as the root cause. And let's be really clear. Amazon has not, will not, and cannot kill brick and mortar retail. What it's done is it's eliminated shitty brick and mortar retail. It's forced marketers and brands that have a four-walled presence to really step up their game and deliver an amazing experience, because the value equation of a brand at brick and mortar is really about experience over price. If you deliver an amazing experience, whether that experience is online or offline, you can charge a premium price. And for us at Pearle Vision, we really think of omnichannel as the way to really engage that patient and motivate them to take the action that we want, which is to schedule that annual eye exam for themselves and their family. And so one of the exciting initiatives that we launched a few years ago that really served us beautifully during the meat and potatoes of the pandemic was our multi-patient scheduler. So if you go to pearlevision.com, find your neighborhood eye care center, it actually prompts you and allows you to schedule multiple exams for people in your family. So, for us, the notion of winning the family is at the core of our strategy. And so we want that chief health officer who's making the health and wellness decisions to be prompted and reminded online in particular that, it's not just about them, it's about the rest of their family, nuclear and otherwise. And so we stimulate that multi-patient growth. And it's really helped us to really drive, record-setting levels of patient acquisition over the last 5 years in particular.
That's pretty remarkable because it's really not only holding yourself accountable to do this routinely check, right? You're also held accountable or responsible for also making sure your loved ones, families, and friends also have that option to also go ahead and get their eyes checked out annually, which, of course, everyone should do. So that's pretty remarkable strategy. Thinking about that and the way that things have shifted both online and in retail, every there's been a huge shift in the way that everyone is working over the past 2 years, right? So we're in this hybrid working world where work from home, remote settings are more prevalent. So really, I know you and I chatted last week about you've really never seen so many different types of advertisements or solicitations, over the past 2 years. So I think it would be also pretty important to talk about getting in front of audiences right now. So what is some advice you can give to the listeners today about maybe some of the best, some of the worst, or just overall advice on how to reach these audiences that, used to come in brick and mortar, but now you're finding new audiences online? Any advice or,
Yeah,
hints
this,
on
this one's
that?
gonna get me. This one's gonna get me in a little bit of trouble, but it's early in the morning, and we'll give some snackable bits of content for everybody to think about. So if you are in sales and business development, and look, I spent a good part of my agency life in biz dev. It's a difficult position. There's two pieces of advice that I'll give you. The first is sort of a captain obvious point, but I'm going to state it anyway, which is spell the name of my brand correctly. I'm the world's worst speller. But if you're looking to get my attention in a positive way, spelling the name of my brand incorrectly is not one way to do it. The second thing is recognize that it is not necessarily my job while you're looking to get time with me or a member of the team to educate you about my business. So, hey, can we set up 15 minutes for you can tell us about your business? No, that's not my job. My job is to ensure that I'm staying open and curious for people that have spent the time to do research on our business and believe that they have value to provide to the brand, either in the products or services that they have. So I would just encourage you to invest the time. If our business is important enough for you to want to do business with us, which, humbly, I hope it is, then please do the time, do the research. The beautiful thing about our brand and our business is there's so much written about it, and most everybody can experience it for themselves by getting their annual eye exam. So I would encourage you to have that attention to detail. I would encourage you to recognize that we don't have the time to educate every single person about our business. And I think, most importantly, come in humble. You're not going to tell me that you've cracked the algorithm for Google. And I don't care how many XP&G people work for your company. It's about the difference that you can make for Pearle, and realize that we're doing well. So it's not a state of where you're coming in to try to fix us. It's about adding value. Having that humility is very attractive, not only as a potential partner, but also as a potential leader of growth for our brand.
I like that. And shifting then to the other side of the coin about, I guess I would say marketers reaching consumers, everyone being at home, right? We have everything from our iPads and all of our devices. Any advice there for how to reach these consumers, being that we've all never received so many different types of ads and solicitations at home as well?
So, the good news is even as we stand today dealing with Omicron, people are fighting through it. And, they're taking the precautions they need, but there is a real hunger to get out of their house, quite frankly, and experience life. And that includes shopping at brick and mortar. And, if you look at the last 12 months, the trajectory of brick and mortar retail, brick and mortar had a pretty good year in 2021. And we certainly did. And so for us, we're not taking you're sitting behind your computer all day approach to marketing. It's really a layer cake. And, at the bottom of that layer cake has to be performance marketing, which is a very strong digital footprint. But as you move up the layers, to the top, you really have to think about not just what you're buying, but most importantly, what you're saying. We spend more time thinking about the how we're going to communicate, than probably ever before. The choice of messaging, the choice of points that we want to connect with people on consumers make emotional decisions before they make rational choices. And so we really have to appreciate what is going on in the movie in everybody's mind in order to figure out how we can put our brand on their brain, and most importantly, motivate them to take the action that we want them to take when we want them to take it. So it's not a one size fits all, but it really we really ground ourselves in appreciating the dynamics that are going through people, not necessarily just where they're spending their time, if that makes sense.
Sure. And to elaborate on that, whether it's for the optical eyewear category or just for retail in general, what would you say is the ideal shopping experience for customers now, considering there is such an array of different options and they're getting targeted in so many different ways?
So there is no ideal. It's very subjective. And it really depends on the product category or service that you're offering. At Pearle Vision, the perfect pair, it really comes down to really understanding the person behind the eyes. And if you think about finding the right pair of prescription glasses, that's only step one. What goes into that, and most importantly, the measurements. In our category, a millimeter of fit is the difference between seeing clearly and having a massive headache. And that's not something that you can confidently do through a webcam like we're talking to today. So for us, it's ensuring that our associates, which are our most important tool in the toolbox of connecting our brand with our consumers, have all the tools available to them. We've recently launched digital fit technology, which allows us to get as precise as humanly possible with the creation of that lens. We really spent a lot of time in the shopping journey to talk and find out about you as a human being, not just what your corrective eyewear needs are. Because you may be somebody who is now migrating to a progressive lens and is now wearing glasses 24/7. And so if you're somebody who lives an active lifestyle, for example, we may suggest a titanium frame or a memory alloy that allows you to take it off and put it on and not have to worry about bending it or cracking it. That's just one example, probably not a good one, but it really comes down to taking the time, really caring about that person behind the eyes. That's what is allowing us and has allowed us to break through the competitive clutter, and post record performance for this brand year over year.
Definitely, that definitely makes total sense. So speaking of all of the legwork and the time that really leads up to then selecting a piece of eyewear, I know when we chatted last, I think I mentioned that I recently purchased a new pair of lenses, and knock on wood for me, I typically like to praise myself for not losing things. And I look at when I purchase eyewear, it's a long-term purchase, right? I'm not just going to buy a pair of glasses and then in 3 weeks from now I'll go get a new pair. But with this whole shift of fast fashion, specifically with this younger generation, consumers want things up to date, whether it's every season or every time a new trend comes out. How has this impacted the optical eyewear space, or just really retail in general? And like, what should brands be thinking about specifically in this category with this trend?
So, I think first and foremost, you have to ground yourself into the fact that this is a medical device. And so when you're shopping for a medical device, are you shopping for the cheapest or are you shopping for the most effective? Especially as you age and your prescription becomes more significant, the preciseness of your lens manufacturing, of your frame fit, nobody has a perfectly symmetrical face. And the way that a pair of glasses is fitted is a very manual process. It's heated up, it's bent, to sit directly on your temples. Depending on your ear height, things may need to be adjusted. And that's not something you're going to get, in the mail. And so, what I would encourage everybody to think about is really the old notion of you get what you pay for. If your idea of, I'll use menswear, is a fine suit is spending $79, there are places that you can go and you can buy a $79 suit and you probably wear it once and you'd send it to the dry cleaner and it comes back and you're using it to, dry the water off your car the next month because it's not holding up. The same thing is really true in eyewear, especially in lenses. You do get what you pay for. And so I would encourage you that if you're going to make an investment in your health, which is really what corrective eyewear is, that's the place where you really invest the time and the money. Do your research, but most importantly, sit across from somebody who's a licensed optician, go to a licensed optometrist, ask questions, come in prepared, but most importantly, recognize that as much as this is a fashion element at its core, it is a medical device. It's a functional element. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to my health, I want to make sure that I have the finest things available.
Certainly, I couldn't agree more with that. And so it seems like there's definitely a lot of education, whether it's someone that's a first time optical lens purchaser, or even maybe with the younger audience or generation. I would assume there's a lot of education then that has to go into really stressing the importance of thinking about this as a medical, device versus just fashion and retail, correct?
Well, it's not that there's a lot. I think just unfortunately, eye care has not reached the same plateau as dental, for example, or your annual physical. More and more consumers are starting to realize, especially, as they're getting older, that an annual eye exam should be part of your normal health and wellness regimen. And for children starting as age 5, if you can believe it, you really should take them for a comprehensive eye exam. And the reason why is very simple. 25% of all kids under the age of 14 and 40% of Hispanic children have an undiagnosed vision issue. And so vision acuity is one of the core things that helps to unlock a child's potential. And that's why one of the initiatives that we have at Pearle Vision is a program called ABC, where we've partnered with our friends at OneSight, and we try to bring corrective eyewear and eye care services to children in need, because there is such a reliance on vision to help unlock the child's potential. And most children that have an undiagnosed vision issue, they tend to get misdiagnosed with a learning disability. Because if you think about it, a 7-year-old may have absolutely no idea what seeing clearly is. And because we're still dealing with, in some cases, hybrid learning environment, the teacher who would normally see that child squint or have the textbook right up at their face doesn't necessarily have that degree of interaction, and didn't have it during the pandemic. So, we are encouraging parents, and we spend a fair amount of our time doing so, educating them about the importance of proactive eye care. If for nothing more, you can check it off the list that your children are seeing clearly. But in the worst case scenario, or maybe the best case scenario, you've caught something and you've now provided them the tools they need to unlock their potential.
Definitely. And I really, really love to hear more about this one site. So when I guess pandemic happened, and of course, as you mentioned, the real experience here, right, is in person. You have to meet with
Right.
a doctor, an optician, and really get that full exam. What was that? Was there an innovative or quick switch that happened to make sure that this program was continuing throughout the past 2 years?
So specifically about ABC, which is our
Correct.
program that's powered by OneSight and Pearle Vision. We actually had to move away from doing, our vision van clinics and live in person. And we went to really helping to raise funds. And we did that through developing a screening tool. Now, a screening is absolutely not the same thing as a comprehensive exam. But for somebody who may have been a little bit nervous about going out to brick and mortar retail early on in the pandemic, we partnered with OneSight and created the ABC screening tool, which happens to be available on our website. And it's a quick test that may give a parent a sense of whether or not their child may be suffering from a significant vision issue. Irregardless of the results, we're always going to encourage you to get in to see one of our optometrists. But this tool allows somebody, from the privacy and the comforts of their own computer, to take a screening and get a sense of whether or not a vision acuity issue exists. And if it does, obviously you can schedule an exam right away. But as we move into 2022, we're trying to figure out ways to get back in front of kids and really bring that tangible feeling of eye care back into the communities that need it so badly. More to come on that.
Definitely. So it seems like there's still now another shift that's going to happen as we
Yeah.
slowly, hopefully, go back to normalcy, and getting more people into those brick and mortar stores.
I think we're navigating through yet another new normal. I have been on a plane a few times and don't even think twice about wearing a mask. And look, they've been doing that in Asia for decades. I think brands have to be resilient. If there's one word to summarize 2022, it's not unprecedented, it's resiliency. And I think brands are having to figure out ways, whether it's staggering appointments, whether it's limiting occupancy, whether it's working with local and state guidelines on PPE. We're trying to be as transparent as we can with our neighbors. about availability. And that's why online patient scheduling is such an important thing, because we have exams available for you to schedule online that allows you to come into one of our eye care centers and know you're going to be seen at that time by a doctor of optometry. You're not going to wait 30 minutes. You're not going to wait 45 minutes. You're probably going to wait 5 minutes, fill out your paperwork, and go right in to see the eye care expert, and then come out, hopefully sit on the retail floor and find your perfect pair. So more intentionality in the process is something we're counting on. And again, that's why we have this incredibly strong digital-based platform for patient acquisition to get you into our eye care centers to experience genuine eye care at its finest at Pearle Vision.
Definitely. So it seems like at Pearle Vision right now, there's both this thought of like short-term planning and changing for like what's right now. And then also as we really evolve, hopefully into this new normalcy, maybe in a couple months or in a year from now, there's also that long-term approach that you're thinking about as well. Is that how you've thought about it over the past 2 years, like this short and long-term plan, or is it really looking at it fully long-term?
So if optical retail wasn't difficult enough, we are a franchise-based business. 80% of our locations are owned by what we call licensed owners, and over half of them are actual doctors. And so our operations team, both our corporate as well as our franchise, are truly best in class. And we have been working hand in hand throughout the pandemic and helping to provide guidance and leadership for how to maintain a strong business trajectory while conforming to state and local guidelines. It comes down to trust. At the end of the day, brands that were able to weather the heart of the pandemic and that have now come out the other end perhaps stronger really invested pre-pandemic in earning trust. And we did that really for the last 9 years, I think, through focusing on small moments of care and connection. You won't find enormous discounts at Pearle Vision. Quite frankly, we shouldn't have to, because we're delivering a best-in-class experience from the exam room to the retail floor. And as long as that experience is truly best in class, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to generate a healthy profit on the sale of our products, because again, you are getting what you pay for. And when you have the finest assortment of frames and lenses, that's being presented to the consumer as an opportunity to unlock their potential by seeing clearly. So discounting is not the way through this pandemic. For us, it's focusing on care, connection, and quality of service. And I think operationally, we're doing everything we can to work with our owners to ensure that we're delivering an amazing patient experience at every eye care center.
That's remarkable. That's great. And so I guess to follow up on that question, besides the optical eyewear industry or specifically for Pearle Vision, have you seen, or what other industries besides your own have really been doing the best job of embracing this blending shopping experience, both online and in store? And based on your answer, are there any advice or tips you can provide to other industries, or things you're even proud of that you've done at Pearle Vision over the past 2 years during this time?
Yeah, I mean, I have to give the folks at Target snaps, because I think what they've done with their curbside delivery is really quite remarkable. I mean, Target is a mega store. And to be able to pre-purchase your items, to pull up to a parking space right in front and have that put in your trunk is pretty amazing. And I think that is likely here to stay, perhaps not to the scale that it is now, or that it hasn't been, but I think they've done a wonderful job. I think some of the service industries, especially in hospitality, obviously it's very few and far between that you actually walk up to a hotel and make a reservation. But I think the online booking process, the customer service process has improved. I applaud what Delta is trying to do, with their flexibility, not only in maintaining status on the airline, but also the ability to change your flight at no change fee. That is really about thinking about people. That's about thinking human. And I think brands that are taking a human approach to marketing and customer service are the ones that are really excelling through this and will continue to excel long after this is a distant memory.
Definitely, I definitely can relate to that. It's definitely all about making sure the focus is on that consumer. So as far as predictions go, with the rest of this year into next year, any predictions on how retail will evolve? Do you think there will be even a bigger shift with e-commerce and retail versus brick and mortar? Or do you think it's going to go back to like a heavy focus on brick and mortar throughout this year?
So, it's interesting. There's a bit of a tsunami that is coming. And in my opinion, you have people that are hungry for, face-to-face interactions, whether that's going to your favorite boutique and finding that sales associate that you trust to help you find that perfect outfit, or going to your favorite restaurant and enjoying a dinner out. There is such a hunger for that degree of personal interaction, but the tsunami is forced by what we're now calling the Great Resignation culture. And it is becoming increasingly difficult for brick and mortar based establishments to deliver a consistent standard of care because they're having trouble getting staff, and the staff that they are getting is often new. So it's unfortunate that I think consumer behavior is leading more towards, I want to get out of my house, I want to enjoy life, I want to get back to doing what I used to do and having a healthy brick and mortar shopping experience. And brands have to struggle with not only getting staff, training staff, but retaining staff. That intersection, I think, is going to hit together. It's going to be very interesting to see how all brands react to it. Some brands will do better than others, that's for sure.
Definitely. And then I guess flipping the coin on that one as well, any advice or thoughts on really everyone on this call, right? Listening in, marketers, salespeople, everyone, we're obviously all consumers, right? We're all consuming things every single day. Any things that make you cringe, or any advice or anything that you'd love to stress to say, hey, as we're all, receiving these ads and going back into stores and purchasing, online shopping is at an all-time high. Any advice or asks or anything you'd like to message to everyone that's just consuming?
So first of all, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Even Belichick doesn't have a third down and global pandemic in his playbook. My advice really to my colleagues and friends in the industries is to go narrow and deep. Said simply, sell more chicken, don't sell pizza. So if you're a company that has made its bank on selling chicken, sell more chicken. Sell chicken tenders, sell chicken fingers, sell chicken wings. Don't all of a sudden introduce pizza as a way to grow market share, as a great way to grow your business. Protect what you do really well and go deeper in figuring out how to make that an even more amazing experience. Where I struggle is where brands try to kind of throw darts at a board because they have this fear that if they don't do it, somebody else will. And look, I have said this for a while, FOMO is not a marketing strategy, and it certainly isn't a way to build your brand. You know at your heart what you're best at. You know at your heart what you're going to win at. Double down. Look at your experience and figure out where you can do an even stronger job, and sell more chicken. That's really what it comes down to. Don't sell pizza. And that's figuratively, not literally. So I don't want to get tweets from Buffalo Wild Wings and Domino's. Okay, it's an analogy. I think you guys know what I mean.
Certainly, yeah. And I think one question that I also kind of forgot to ask was going back to the shift of like these new audiences, kind of to spice things up here a little bit. I know that we discussed this briefly on our call, but as the Gen Z audience matures into a more formatable consumer base, how do you think marketing and advertising needs to adapt in relation to gender identity? So for example, products have traditionally been developed for men and women, and with such a nuance around gender and identity, how has your brand shifted, or any advice that you can give to the marketers out here? I know specifically for optical and eyewear, I would say from my experience, there's definitely that eyewear really could be for any gender, but just wanted to hear your thoughts on that before we go into Q&A.
Yeah, for us, and I think, if you look at like the watch business, for example, just because a watch may be sized for a man doesn't mean that those who identify as female aren't wearing it. In eyewear, it's the same thing. The journey of finding your perfect pair actually starts with the person behind the eyes. So it starts with who you are on the inside, not necessarily what you look like on the outside or identify with on the outside. It starts with understanding what your needs are emotionally, but practically. Going back to my analogy before, if you're somebody who is maybe moving into a progressive lens and you're going to be wearing your glasses 24/7, you may want something that either provides a stronger fashion statement or that's more durable, depending on who you are. But the real fundamentals is about face shape and face size. And so if you're somebody who has a larger or a wider face, there are certain frames that are going to fit you and there are others that aren't. And so for us, we're fortunate that our approach really speaks to the person behind the eyes. and how they present versus what they physically look like. My advice is for marketers in this area in particular is to lead through listening. Be open and curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to take feedback. Don't be afraid to make adjustments, and don't be afraid to make a misstep. I think cancel culture has paralyzed a lot of marketers these days. And I think if you go into the process by being humble, by ensuring that you're staying on the ground, I mean, for those of us that have brick and mortar establishments, the most important people are our frontline associates. Talk to them, find out what's going on, find out what they're seeing, make adjustments. It doesn't have to be going from A to Z. It could be going from A to B. Take those baby steps. The consumer will appreciate you. The consumer will forgive you. So as long as you've demonstrated a strong ability to be empathetic and, again, to lead through listening.
Love that. So really thinking about that consumer first, understanding, as you mentioned in the beginning as well, this pair of eyewear really becomes part of your identity, right? So it's really understanding the needs of that consumer and seeing really what makes sense for them, right? It's not a one size fits all. So it really could just be understanding what they need and then matching them to that need to make sure they're comfortable and confident.
It's taking the time to get to know the person behind the eyes. And that's why, again, in our category, what we encourage is this isn't a transactional business. It's a relationship-based business. If you're coming to us every year for your annual eye exam and for your new perfect pair, you're going to want to establish trust. You're going to want to know that that person on the other side of the dispensing desk really is thinking about you as a human first, and trying to help you find what's best for you.
Love that. And so before we get into, I think there's some Q&A popping up.
Right.
Anything else that you can share? So I know we spoke a little bit about One Site, which is really awesome just to learn and hear more about that initiative, but anything else you can share or want to touch on as you go into 2022, anything for us to expect or be excited about, whether it's about Pearle Vision in general or just the retail space that you'd love to share?
So I think the best laid plans for 2022 are the ones that allow you the greatest degree of flexibility. I think the first quarter of this year is going to be challenging. I think eventually things will stabilize. But, most businesses in a retail establishment were comping over 2 years last year. They were looking at 19 versus 21 because 2020 was quote unquote unprecedented. 2022, most businesses are going back to a 1-year comp. And so 2021 was anything but predictable. I think for 2022, marketers have to have a well thought out plan. But again, this perhaps isn't the year to go wide. It's the year to go narrow and deep. Pick and choose your innovation wisely. The first 2 letters of the word innovation are in, and that stands for insight. So base your moves, your chess moves, the things that you want to move forward with that are different, truly rooted in insight. And that should be a no-lose scenario for brands to continue to bring newness into the portfolio.
Wow, love that. That's great.
Great.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm just trying to pull up the thing here to see if there's any, I don't know why I can't see it on my end, but that was really great. And I think really just hearing about the journey from the history of Dr. Stanley Pearle's vision to where it is now with over 600 plus locations and growing is pretty phenomenal. And that the whole shift of retail and e-commerce is really fascinating, specifically over the past 2 years, and understanding how to adapt and shift and be innovative with this new normal, I should say, has been really great to chat with you about.